That year, when our parents passed away and the company was on the verge of bankruptcy, I cut ties with my sister during her most difficult time. 5 years later, her company went public. With her success and fame, she became President Huo, a woman everyone looks up to. When reporters asked who she was most grateful to over the years, my sister's eyes grew cold. With a mocking tone, she replied, "The younger brother who abandoned me for money? No, he doesn't even count as my brother anymore. Let's see how he's doing now." The reporters launched a net-wide campaign to find President Huo's brother, offering a bounty of 10 million, but they couldn't find me. They only found the diary I wrote before I died. When the reporter handed that diary to my sister, she froze in place. She took it with trembling hands, but in the very next second, she threw the diary into the trash can. "Is this Huo Nian's new trick, or are you doing this on purpose for the show's effect?" The reporter shook his head and carefully picked up my diary. "This is indeed the diary your brother wrote before his death. As for his body, it has already been cremated, because it went unclaimed. It has been handled by the crematorium." Before he could finish his sentence, my sister stood up in a furious rage. "Don't think I'll forgive him just because he's playing this kind of trick. Go tell Huo Nian. I already have a younger brother now. He means absolutely nothing to me. Even if he really is dead, I wouldn't care." The reporter looked at her in a tough spot. "Then what about this diary? How would you like to handle it?" My sister Huo Wantong sneered. "You read it. Let me see what kind of lies he can make up." "Hello, Mr. Diary. From now on, please take good care of me. You're the only one left to keep me company, right? Let me tell you. Today, I took the gifts my family bought for me, and as I was running away from home, I was caught by my sister. I originally didn't want to run into her. I just wanted to leave home quietly. But my sister was being very annoying. She grabbed my hand and told me not to leave, saying I was her only family left. At that moment, my heart trembled, but I still kept a cold face and questioned her. "Now that the company's bankrupt, can you still buy me the motorcycle models I like? I spend money like water. Can you still afford to raise me instead of living with you?" And trying to find ways to save money every day. But my sister got even more anxious, questioning who told me these things, and telling me not to be scammed. She also said she would work harder in the future, make lots and lots of money, and definitely let me live the life of a young master like before. But guess what I said? "I'm willing to be scammed. Is it any of your business? If you are capable and have the money to raise me, I will still be your good brother. I would still come home. But when will you ever have money?" My sister is such a strong-willed person, yet to make me stay, she actually knelt down. Pretty pathetic, isn't it? I turned my face away, and while she wasn't looking, wiped the tears from the corner of my eyes. "Don't delay my future," I said, and even threatened to cut ties with her entirely. That slap really stunned my sister. She stood there frozen, watching helplessly as I dragged my luggage away. "I'm sorry, sister. It must have hurt a lot, right?" After reading this page, the reporter took a deep breath. I didn't expect President Huo to rely on her brother so much. But when the camera turned to my sister, her expression showed no sign of being moved. She remained as cold as ever, just casually saying, "I deeply regret it. I regret being so good to him in the past, only to raise an ungrateful wretch. Mr. Diary, I'm back again. Today, I went to another hospital for a follow-up examination. Honestly, how I wish the previous diagnosis was a mistake. That way, I could go back and tell my sister I regretted it. As long as I swallowed my pride, my sister would forgive me just like before. But life doesn't have that many miracles." That middle-aged doctor said to me with a serious face, "Where are your parents?" "Primary liver cancer. It's already in the late stage. You need to be hospitalized immediately." I didn't really understand, but the fear of death still made me burst into tears. I'm only 18 years old. The doctor looked at me with pity and wrote me a billing slip for hospitalization. I ran over to the payment machine to take a look, and finally, I sneaked out of the hospital. Forget it. My account is linked to my sister's main card. Let me save her some money. I'm dying soon anyway. Why waste my sister's money? Every penny she earns does not come easy. Ever since the contractor our parents worked with ran away, the project collapsed, and the capital chain broke. Under immense pressure, our parents ran around trying to fix it, but got into a car crash after a business dinner. They both passed away. The burden of the company fell entirely on my sister's shoulders. I saw with my own eyes the debt collectors who came to our door, emptying out all the valuables in our house just to get money. And my sister, in order to save a few $100,000 for my study abroad, knelt on the ground and kowtowed to them. But in the end, the assets were still seized by the bank. To pay off the debts, my sister went everywhere to borrow money, drinking at dinners until her stomach bled and she was hospitalized. But she had no time to see a doctor, and no money for treatment. As soon as she woke up, she left the hospital and continued to run the business, begging everyone and acting like their servant. I cried and begged her to wait until she recovered before working, but she said she was made of iron, and she would be fine. Tell me, isn't my sister quite silly? Actually, I wanted to share her burden. I wanted to tell my sister that I didn't need to study abroad, and I was no longer the pampered young master from before. I could give up everything, and I could even work part-time to make money and support her. But I never expected that at such a critical moment, I would get the most expensive disease to treat. Mr. Diary, do you also think I'm completely useless? The reporter's eyes turned red. It seems your brother truly had a hidden reason for leaving back then. Getting liver cancer at such a young age, it's really so pitiful. Huo Wantong sneered. This pity play is quite well acted. Reporter Lin, don't be fooled by him. Huo Nian is the best at lying. When he was little, he lied to our parents that he sprained his ankle, terrifying our entire family into running around in circles for him and sending him to the hospital. His acting has always been excellent. I hope so. Last night, I suffered from insomnia again. It's not that I don't want to sleep. I really just can't fall asleep. The illness is getting worse, and without buying medicine, I really can't endure the pain. But I don't have money. Now, there is something even more important. If I don't pay the rent, I'll be kicked out by the landlord. I'll really have to experience sleeping under a bridge, like I joked with my sister when we were kids. I used to read martial arts novels, and thought it was so cool for a great hero to sleep under a bridge. But now that I've grown up, I'm actually very scared. With no money to spend, I had no choice but to take the gifts Mom and Dad gave me, and list them for sale online. They were among the very few things I brought with me. But when people actually came to ask about them, I kept making up excuses to reject them. At the end of the day, I just couldn't bear to part with them. In the end, I was in so much pain, and so terribly hungry, I really couldn't bear it anymore, and withdrew 500 from the card. I'm sorry, sister. I spent your money again. After becoming poor, I found that my old habit of being a picky eater was cured. When I was so hungry I almost fainted. I even picked out dirty buns that others threw in the trash to eat. Actually, they tasted pretty good. It seems poverty can cure all young master diseases. I went to the supermarket and bought a bag of steamed buns and a jug of mineral water. I went to the hospital to buy some medicine and save the rest for rent. My teacher called me again. He urged me to study hard, saying it was a shame for someone with my good grades to suddenly skip classes. I was afraid he would contact my sister, so I requested to drop out of school. But the teacher still called my sister anyway. My sister just called me a moment ago. Her tone was stiff and cold. Huan Yen, I know you don't want to have anything to do with me, and I don't care who you're clinging to, but you shouldn't give up the studies you were so proud of for her. Being so degenerate, are you doing justice to our parents? It's only been about 10 days since I heard my sister's voice, but it feels like such a long time, like half a lifetime. I covered my mouth, trying not to cry out loud, but the tears wouldn't stop. Sister, I miss you so much. On the other end of the phone, my sister grew impatient waiting and dropped another harsh sentence. If you keep acting like this, I really won't care about you anymore. She hung up the phone, but I cried for a long time. Dear diary, I think I'd better block my sister's number. Tomorrow, I'll go process my school withdrawal. The reporter noticed. President Huo looked a bit dazed. He paused for a moment, wiped the moisture from his own eyes, and turned to the next page. Dear diary, I moved. That original motel was $50 a night. It was too expensive. I ran around all day, searching the whole city. Finally, in a remote urban village in the south, I found a place. That only costs $30 a night. The room has 4 beds. A weird older man lives diagonally across from me. I looked at that girl gratefully. She sleeps in the bottom bunk. Her name is Xia Yang. She looked up and smiled at me. Don't worry, I've got your back. She is so nice. That night, I took my medicine and slept very peacefully. I had a dream. In it, Mom and Dad took me and my sister to Disneyland. Knowing that I love Iron Man, my sister went to wait in line for hours for me. When it was finally her turn, she called my name and pushed me in front of the guy in the Iron Man suit, finally getting to take a photo with my idol. I smiled so hard my eyes turned into crescents. Mom, Dad, and my sister were just a few steps away, watching me happily. But when I turned around after the photo, they had all disappeared. The clear blue sky suddenly turned pitch black. I was terrified, but no matter how hard I looked, I couldn't find them anywhere. I woke up with a start, covered in a cold sweat. Sister Xia Yang looked at me with concern. Are you okay? I shook my head. She asked me why I was living here. I told her everything. I don't know why, but I just trusted her completely. After listening, she didn't say a word. She just hugged me. Her embrace was very warm. She told me that she was an orphan. She started surviving on the streets in her teens. From a young age, she had seen all kinds of people and learned a lot of ways to protect herself. She said, a kid like you needs me to look out for you. Sister Xia Yang taught me a lot of money-saving tricks, like going to the supermarket to pick expired food. Some supermarkets will compensate you with a little money. Some won't, but they'll let you take the expired food for free. Also, going to the wet market to pick up vegetable leaves thrown away by the vendors. Just pluck off the rotten parts, blanch them in boiling water, and they can still fill your stomach. Sister Xia Yang also took me to do some part-time work to earn extra cash. I made $60 in just one afternoon. Holding the money, for the first time, I felt like I wasn't totally useless. I thought, if I could earn this much every day, I could even leave a sum of money for my sister after I die. Thinking of this, I laughed out loud. Sister Xia Yang looked at me like I was an idiot. You're this happy over $60? She poked my forehead and said, you really have no ambition. Except for having to be on guard against that weird older man every day, and having to rush to wash up and get into bed first, because the motel cuts off power and water at 10 p.m. Living in this motel during this time has actually been quite happy. It's almost time for the power out again. Good night. The reporter noticed that. When reading the part about the older man, even the aloof President Huo quietly clenched her fists. He thought, perhaps President Huo wasn't as disgusted by her brother as she appeared to be, but a moment later, he felt that maybe it was just his imagination. He turned to the next page and continued reading, Dear Diary, I moved out because yesterday, Sister Xia Yang saw me coughing up blood. She obviously has no savings, but she still insisted on taking me to the doctor. I hadn't told her I was sick before. I only said I moved out because I had a falling out with my sister, but I couldn't hide it from her. Maybe I really am a jinx. I don't want to burden my sister, let alone burden this loyal friend I just met, she once told me. She was saving money to open her own auto repair shop and have a home of her own. I won't let you die at such a young age. When she said this, her eyes were full of stubbornness. I smiled and nodded, but in my heart, I was thinking, goodbye, sister. Early the next morning, I dragged my meager luggage and quietly left. Squatting to write the diary is making my legs numb. Wait a second, let me take a breather. Okay, my health has been worse lately. I've started throwing up blood. I just couldn't hold it back and threw up again. Passers-by saw me like this and were badly frightened. They stayed far away, pointing and whispering. I curled up into a ball, and it took a long time before I lifted my head. Then I realized blood had dripped onto the diary. I hurriedly tried to wipe it with my hand, but the bloodstain only smeared larger. I'm sorry, dear diary, for getting you dirty too. I didn't mean to. It just hurts so much I can't control it. While I was squatting on the ground trying to recover, a lady in shabby clothes walked up to me and stuffed some money into my hand. No matter how much I tried to refuse, she just dropped the money and ran. I quietly followed her and saw she was with her husband, and her husband was holding a very young child. She tucked her hair back, kissed the baby's cheek, and busily went back to peddling fruit. I waited there for a long time, until it got dark. Half my body was frozen stiff, and more than half of their fruit was still unsold. The lady sighed. Her husband comforted her with a few words. The two started packing up, placing the baby in a basket on the side. I put on my hood, walked over quickly, and when they weren't looking, I stuffed the money back into the baby's clothes. Nice made-up story. I was almost moved. Out of money? So he's writing fiction to make a buck? Reporter Lin There's no need to read any further. I'm ridiculous too, actually sitting here wasting so much time. Since he's playing dead and doesn't dare to face me, then I'll just treat him as if he's really dead. I don't care anyway. Saying this, she stood up and turned away without a shred of attachment. The interview came to an abrupt end. However, this interview episode went viral. Someone dug up news from 5 years ago. After President Huo cut ties with her brother, showing her frequently visiting a psychological clinic, people deduced that due to her parents' passing and her brother's betrayal, President Huo suffered from severe depression, and after the company improved, she adopted a new younger brother. Meanwhile, the diary of President Huo's biological brother sparked heated discussions among netizens. Some scolded the brother for seeking attention by playing dead. They said he left his own sister for money back then, leaving her alone to face the crisis of bankruptcy, which dealt a huge blow to her mental state. Now that he sees his sister as successful, he's playing the victim to gain sympathy, even making up a diary like this. It's a pity President Huo already has a new brother. Rumor has it that to celebrate his 18th birthday, she rented out an entire amusement park and gifted him a limited edition sports car. Saying she pampers him to the extreme is an understatement, but many others felt there might be a hidden truth. The diary feels incredibly real, and the emotions are very sincere. I don't believe someone who can write this would be that kind of person. Regardless of the opinions, netizens are all eagerly looking forward to it. What will President Huo's brother write in his next diary entry? For the sake of ratings, the TV station reporter contacted President Huo again, asking if she agreed to make her brother's pre-death diary public. Whether she didn't believe it or truly didn't care, President Huo's assistant stated that President Huo said, "This diary has already been handed over to your TV station. Whether it is made public or destroyed, she has no objections." He added that President Huo made it clear she only has one younger brother. Huo Yu? Haha, so satisfying. Some netizens felt it was incredibly satisfying. So satisfying. Let's see if President Huo's brother keeps acting. She doesn't care about him at all. Having obtained authorization, the TV station shortly after broadcasted a live program called Huonian's Pre-Death Diary. On screen, the reporter looked solemn. "Just like all of you, I haven't read this diary beforehand. After receiving President Huo's authorization, I will share it with everyone in the live stream today. I hope everyone will be kind with their words." Hundreds of thousands of people flooded into the live stream instantly. In less than a minute, it surpassed 1 million viewers. Everyone was waiting for reporter Lin to open the diary. Meanwhile, at the Huo family's residence, assistant Lin Yi looked at President Huo with a complex expression. After hesitating for a long time, he finally spoke. "President Huo, the program is about to start." President Huo didn't even look up. "I said I don't want to hear any news about him again." Reporter Lin took a deep breath and opened the diary. "Dear diary, I found a stray puppy today. Originally, I didn't want to meddle, but it kept dragging its injured leg, following me and whimpering. Thinking that in my condition, I couldn't take good care of it anyway. I hardened my heart and kept walking. But after a few steps, I turned back and picked it up. In that instant, the little yellow dog's eyes suddenly lit up. It kept licking my palm with its tongue. I sighed. It must have figured out I have a soft heart. I named it Chang Sheng, hoping it will be blessed and live a long life. Unlike me, whose life will be cut short. I took it to the pet hospital. The examination fee alone emptied my wallet. The follow-up surgery cost 2,000 yuan. If it doesn't get the surgery, it will die. I looked at Chang Sheng in my arms and cautiously begged the doctor, asking if I could bring him back for the surgery in a few days. I had no money. We can't delay it any longer. Tomorrow at the latest. Holding Chang Sheng, I walked out of the pet hospital, sitting at the corner of the street in a daze. I talked to him. "You're so silly. With so many rich people around, why did you have to find a dying person like me? And if that wasn't bad enough, I'm also incredibly poor. Where am I going to find 2,000 yuan for you?" The puppy couldn't understand what I was saying. It just happily wagged its tail, celebrating having a home. Looking at him, my eyes grew wet again. Because of this, I had no choice but to walk to an ATM. I hesitated, wanting to withdraw 2,000 yuan. Just one last time. "Sister, this will be the last time I spend your money." But to my surprise, my sister had deactivated my supplementary card. My heart skipped a beat, but it made sense. I had long said I wanted to cut ties with her. She had no reason to give me money to spend. I had never planned on contacting her again, but I had no choice. For Chang Sheng's sake, I removed her number from my blacklist and called her. The phone rang for a long time. Just when I thought she wouldn't answer, she finally picked up. She scoffed coldly. "Regretting it? You actually blocked me, and now you're reaching out on your own? Didn't you say you were cutting ties with me, or are you just out of money?" As soon as she spoke, the words I wanted to say got stuck in my throat. I wanted so badly to just hang up, but Chang Sheng in my arms reminded me. "Transfer 2,000 to me." After a moment of silence, my sister questioned me. "You haven't contacted me for so long. You don't care if your sister is eating well or sleeping well? You don't miss me. You just want money, right?" I bit my lip hard. A salty taste welled up in my throat, but I forcefully swallowed it down. "You want money, right? I'll give it all to you. Are you satisfied? I shouldn't have had any expectations of you. Huonian, you truly are heartless. From today onward, I am severing our sibling relationship." She hung up the phone. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I crouched on the ground, held Chang Sheng, and threw up. Snow. So much snow. But falling on the dark pavement, it didn't seem to leave much of a trace. Chang Sheng seemed terrified. He kept whimpering, licking my cheek. I stroked him comfortingly. It hurt, but I was numb to it. Actually, my heart ached even more. Looking at my phone, I had received the 20,000 yuan she transferred. Bank notice. Your account ending in 0000. Current balance, 20,000.00 MB. I realized she had already blocked me. I held Chang Sheng and cried for a long time. I knew my sister truly didn't want me anymore. I used to wish she would forget me and cut ties with me. Now that she actually did it, I was so heartbroken I could barely breathe. Chang Sheng? I don't have a home anymore. The live chat comments flew by rapidly. Why is this so tragic? Even if this guy faked his death and made up the story, my god, I'm already tearing up. I'm crying. Hurry up and keep reading. What happened to Chang Sheng? The puppy can't speak. It only knows how to celebrate having a home. Up to this point, there were still some scolding Huan Yen for acting to gain sympathy, but compared to before, it was just a drop in the bucket. It seemed everyone was now more concerned about Chang Sheng's safety. Amidst the urging, reporter Lin gathered his emotions and turned to the next page. Dear diary, long time no see. I have good news for you. Chang Sheng had his surgery and is healthy now. It's just that he's a very clingy puppy. He follows me wherever I go. He even snuggles by my feet when I sleep. But there's also bad news. My illness has gotten worse. I don't know how long I have left to live. Maybe less than a month. When I go to the pharmacy to buy medicine now, the pharmacists look at me with guarded expressions. They always think I'm an addict. Luckily, I kept my medical diagnosis. After begging for a bit, they relent and give it to me. But the painkillers are becoming less effective. To fall asleep, I have to take more. Yesterday, while handing out flyers, I suddenly fainted by the side of the road. It terrified Chang Sheng. He kept licking my face and barking at me. He finally drew the attention of kind-hearted people who sent me to the hospital, which cost another sum of money. I calculated it with a heavy heart. Not only did I not get my part-time pay, but I also lost a large chunk of cash. You must be hospitalized immediately, and we need to notify your family. If this continues, you might very soon. The doctor didn't finish, but I knew what he meant. I gave a few perfunctory replies and quickly left the hospital. I can't be hospitalized. It's too expensive. At the hospital entrance, I found Chang Sheng. As soon as he saw me, he sprinted over. But at night, the pain still kept me tossing and turning. Chang Sheng sensed my agony. He was very anxious, but there was nothing he could do. He could only press tightly against me and lick me continuously. He looked like he was about to cry. I weakly raised my hand to comfort him. I'm fine. But the very next second, I couldn't help but rush out, hugging the toilet as I threw up. It felt like I was throwing up my entire being. I don't know how much time passed. I threw up until the world spun. Later, I regained consciousness as Chang Sheng licked me. I looked in the mirror and even scared myself. So incredibly ugly. My hair was thinning. My face was sallow. My once round cheeks were now so gaunt that my chin was sharply pointed. My sister used to joke, saying my baby face looked completely harmless. But now, it seems my life will forever be frozen with this face. Staying young forever doesn't seem like a good thing. I want to grow up bit by bit, stay by my sister's side, watch her start a family and a career, and live a happy life. I washed my face, patted my cheeks, and cheered myself up. There are some benefits though. It's a good thing my sister can't see how I look now. Otherwise, she'd definitely be terrified. After eating, I barely managed to fall asleep, but woke up with a fever again in the middle of the night. Mr. Diary, it hurts so much. Actually, I miss my sister so much. I want to see her one more time. Just seeing her from afar would be enough. Such a wish shouldn't be asking too much, right? I'm going out to see my sister now, taking Chang Sheng with me. For this, I prepared a hat, a mask, and a black trench coat, looking cool like a paparazzo. I just need to take one look at her from a distance. Mr. Diary, I'm back. My sister is still as beautiful and capable as before. She's taller, but also thinner. I originally planned to just take one look and leave, but she looks so unhappy. She used to love smiling so much. Subconsciously, I followed her for a bit. I didn't know why she was going to the hospital. Why was she seeing a psychotherapist? After she left, I asked her attending doctor. He refused to tell me, saying it was patient privacy. Only after my repeated pleas did he let out a sigh and talk about her condition. My sister is sick, very sick. Our parents' death was a huge blow to her, and my leaving made her blame herself deeply. She felt she was useless and couldn't take good care of me, which was why I despised her and left. Because of this, she even started self-harming. I cried, and as I cried, I started laughing. My sister is so silly. I'm the one who is useless. I would only drag her down. She is the best sister in the world. She would save up a year's allowance to buy me an expensive birthday gift. She would beat up the bullies in school and school tyrants until they couldn't get up, even if it meant she would get punished. After our parents died, she handled everything, bearing all the pressure alone, while still giving me a comfortable life. How could I ever despise her? Reporter Lin suddenly stopped and showed the diary to the camera. Everyone noticed that on this page, besides the neat handwriting, there were traces of dried tear stains. He must have cried for a long time. Tears soaking this page of the diary. Even the reporter's eyes couldn't help but well up, adjusting her trembling voice caused by choking up. I am so useless. I can't do anything. I watched helplessly as my sister walked right past me, without the courage to step forward and hug her. In a moment our eyes met, she just looked away. She couldn't recognize me anymore. Makes sense? Looking like a monster as I do now, it's best she doesn't see me again. I don't want to make her sad. Mr. Diary, I've made up my mind. Rather than dying of pain like this, I might as well end my own life. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? My illness has really made me delirious. I often talk to you and talk to Chang Sheng as if you guys could answer me. I've bought the sleeping pills. But what about Chang Sheng? I can't just leave him behind. I want to give Chang Sheng to my sister, to keep her company and let Chang Sheng be cared for. I am just so smart. However, I suddenly remembered, tomorrow is my birthday. I'll hold on for one more day. I don't want to die on my birthday. Last year, on my 17th birthday, Mom and Dad custom ordered a set of limited edition gaming gear for me. After I opened it, Dad patted my shoulder, laughing endlessly, saying I was the coolest kid. My sister prepared a mechanical watch for me. The dial was shining, and it was very expensive. But these gifts were taken away long ago as collateral. What remains by my side now are only those inexpensive gifts. I carry them with me wherever I go. Even when I had no money for food, I couldn't bear to sell a single one. When sleeping, I hugged the brown bear Mom bought me when I was 8, as if I'm hugging Mom. Mom, Dad, and my sister also said that for my coming of age ceremony, they would throw me an incredibly grand birthday party to celebrate their little young master's 18th birthday. Now it seems only Chang Sheng is by my side. I hold him tight. That's the only warmth I can feel. Chang Sheng seemed to sense my emotions. He began using his wet tongue to constantly lick my palms and cheeks, trying to warm me up. It tickled a bit, so I smiled and gave him a kiss. I carried him to the bakery. I wanted to buy a small cake for myself. On past birthdays, I didn't even like eating the 3 or 4 tiered cakes for my parents. Now, having not eaten one for so long, my mouth watered just craving it. Looking at the price tag of a few hundred yuan, I stood there for a long time, reluctant to spend the money. The clerk impatiently walked over and asked if I was buying. If not, hurry and leave. She then glanced at Changsheng in my arms, frowned, and said pets weren't allowed in the store. But I clearly just saw a boy holding a poodle. Maybe it was because Changsheng was filthy. I didn't have money to take him to a groomer. I apologized profusely and ordered the cheapest chocolate cupcake for 20 yuan. I found a park bench and sat down holding Changsheng. There were no candles, so I just silently visualized them in my heart. I closed my eyes and made my wishes. I wish for Changsheng to be safe and sound. I wish for my sister to achieve success, to have a long and blessed life, and to be happy forever. Opening my eyes, I fed the cake to Changsheng. He ate it very happily, as if celebrating my coming-of-age ceremony. I was clearly craving it so much, but after just a few bites, I leaned over and threw it all up. Finally, I took Changsheng to a pet store and got him washed. It cost 200 yuan. The owner said he had never seen such a well-behaved dog. Sobs. I took the clean Changsheng back. Smelling so sweet, I took a deep breath. Changsheng is a gift from heaven to me. Now, I want to give this gift to my sister. I hope she can help me take good care of Changsheng, and I hope Changsheng can accompany her in my place. There's also the 20,000 yuan in the card, which I'll secretly slip under her door too. If nothing unexpected happens, this diary won't be updated anymore, because tomorrow, I will be going to another world to see my mom and dad. Mr. Diary, I will miss you. Changsheng, I will bless you too. And my sister, I will always watch over you. I thought it ended here, but reporter Lin instinctively turned to the next page and saw the words written there. I'm sorry, Changsheng. I failed to take good care of you. My sister thought you were a dog with an owner, or maybe she just didn't want you. I was hiding not far away, planning to leave only after she took you in. But Changsheng broke free from his leash and ran towards my direction. If only I had handed him to her personally, would he have been fine? I kept crying and begging Changsheng not to leave me. But he struggled to lift his head, let out a whimper, licked my face, and then closed his eyes. I held Changsheng and sang to him. Little doggy, be good. Open the door wide. As I sang, my face was covered in tears. I buried Changsheng on a small mound next to Mom and Dad's grave. The moon isn't full tonight, but it's very bright. I can't wait until the 15th anymore. Changsheng, run a little slower. I'm coming to find you right now. And Mom and Dad too. Goodbye, sister. Reporter Lin finished reading the diary, her eyes brimming with tears, and the live chat was scrolling rapidly. What? Changsheng died? And Huo Nian died too? The author is so cruel. Dying himself is one thing. Why did he have to write the dog to death too? What did the dog do wrong? Poor Changsheng. Is Huo Nian really dead? Or is it fake? It's just a publicity stunt. Can anyone tell me? Based on police records and our investigation, Huo Nian passed away 5 years ago. This is not a publicity stunt. Please respect the deceased and watch what you say online. As for this diary, we will preserve it. We will no longer respond to any other questions. Thank you all. Subsequently, reporter Lin ended the live stream. The netizens' curiosity could not be satisfied, so they flooded President Huo's Weibo with direct messages. With so many people commenting and searching on her profile, it even hit the trending searches. President Huo's brother Huo Nian is dead. The contents of Huo Nian's diary before his death. Is the death of President Huo's brother real? Is the diary real? Meanwhile, the sister mentioned in the diary made a post online. Is Nianian dead? I'm sorry for leaving without saying goodbye back then. I searched for a long time but couldn't find him. I failed him. If only I had taken him to the doctor earlier, he wouldn't have passed away so early, and he wouldn't have suffered so much. Most people remained skeptical, until she posted a photo together with him. The boy with the bright smile in the picture was exactly the same as the previously leaked photos of Huo Nian. Only then did everyone believe her. Netizens were completely devastated. 1. They finally believed the diary was real. 1M+. The entire internet began mourning Huo Nian and Changsheng. Shares 1M+. Trending topics exploded one after another. Nianian and Changsheng, we are bringing you home. Nianian and Changsheng, are you doing okay in the other world? This finally alerted President Huo's assistant. He stared at his phone for a long time and hesitatingly spoke up. President Huo, did you see a dog 5 years ago? A cream-colored one. President Huo looked at him in confusion, and after a moment, she nodded. That day, when I came home from work, I found a little dog tied to the pillar by the gate. It was cream-colored all over, with a little pink nose. It was very clean and adorable. You could tell at a glance it was someone's pet. I remembered he also liked small animals, so I went up and petted it. The dog was very well behaved, wagging its tail at me constantly. I figured the owner would be back soon, so I went inside. Not long after, I heard a commotion outside. I walked to the window to take a look. A boy was crying in the middle of the road, holding that little dog. He was crying so heartbrokenly. That must have been the dog's owner. I heard the dog hadn't seen its owner for a while, got anxious, broke free from the leash, and was hit and killed by a car. The assistant froze. Suddenly, his phone dinged. He looked down at the file that had just been sent to his phone, and his heart skipped a beat. President Huo, I'm sorry. Recently, I investigated the diary behind your back, and your brother's whereabouts. He is really dead. The police registered his death certificate 5 years ago. It's real. It can't be faked. He committed suicide by taking poison. That diary is also real. After saying this, the assistant didn't dare to look at President Huo's reaction. He just tapped on those trending topics. Take a look at what Huo Nian went through. Afterwards, his diary has been made public across the whole internet today. I figured you would want to know. Walking to the door, he added, your brother, he really had a hard life. After walking out of President Huo's office, Assistant Lin Yi gently closed the door. After that soft click, the world seemed to be completely shut out. Inside the office, only Huo Wantong remained, along with the heavy investigation file in her hands. The air grew stagnant. The coldness and nonchalance she had forced herself to maintain was like a punctured balloon, instantly deflating and vanishing. She didn't even have the courage to open the file right away. Instead, her freezing fingertips just traced the rough edges of the paper. Her mind uncontrollably flashed back to the interview. When the reporter took out the diary, her heart had unnaturally constricted for a moment. When hearing the contents of the diary, those subtle doubts and pangs of pain that she had forcefully suppressed resurfaced, along with the sentence, "I originally wanted to keep it company, so that Chang Sheng would have someone to look after it." At the time, she thought it was Huo Nian's clumsy lie, but now, it felt like poison-tipped needles, piercing into her heart one by one. Trembling, she finally opened the file. The first page was a copy of the police death certificate, printed in stark black and white, in a cold, formal layout. Name, Huo Nian. Gender, male. Date of death, that autumn, 5 years ago. It was just 3 months after their last phone call. Cause of death, location of discovery, in a small grove by the river on the outskirts of the city, close to what he had mentioned in his diary, next to where their parents' ashes were buried. Discovered by an old man walking his bird at dawn. Handling of remains, due to being unclaimed, cremated by the funeral home, according to regulations. Ashes temporarily stored, overdue and subsequently disposed of ecologically. Every single word felt like a blunt knife, sawing back and forth against her heart. The word unclaimed materialized into an actual slap, striking her fiercely across the face. What was she doing back then? She was immersed in the anger and pain of his supposed betrayal. Perhaps she was receiving treatment at some psychological clinic, or forcing a smile at a cocktail reception. Perhaps she hadn't even thought about verifying whether he was still living safely somewhere. Attached at the back were copies of several photos from the scene. The resolution was low, but enough to clearly see the situation at that time. A young man so thin he was almost emaciated was quietly leaning against a tree trunk. He was wearing that black trench coat mentioned in his diary, the hood covering over half of his face. Empty medicine bottles and sleeping pill blister packs were scattered at his feet. In his arms, he was tightly holding an old, worn-out brown bear plushie. Hu Wantong recognized it at a glance. It was the birthday gift their mother had given him when he was 8. He had actually kept it with him all this time. There was also a photo of where the diary was found. It was right by his side, carefully wrapped in a plastic bag, as if he was afraid the morning dew would get it wet. Even up to the very end, he was protecting this diary, the only thing he could confide in. Huo Wantang's breathing became rapid, and her vision quickly blurred. She suddenly covered her mouth with her hand, but she could not suppress the broken whimpers surging up from deep within her chest. The tears she thought had dried up long ago now burst forth like a broken dam, scalding her skin as they fell. "Nianian, my Nianian," she murmured, her voice so hoarse it didn't even sound like her own. It wasn't a made-up story. He was truly sick. He was truly destitute. In the final moments of his life, he truly was, enduring the torment of illness and the coldness of the world. Yet, he was still constantly thinking about her, his incompetent sister. He deliberately said those awful things and pushed her away in the most hurtful manner possible. It was because he loved her too much, loved her so much that he'd rather bear all the infamy and pain himself than become a burden to her. And what about her? What had she done? She had believed his act. She had hated him for 5 years. Even upon hearing the news of his death, she had said, "Even if he's dead, I wouldn't care." Such awful things. She had adopted a new younger brother, trying to use him to fill the void Huo Nian had left behind. Yet she never truly tried to understand his absolute resolve back then. Immense regret and guilt washed over her like a tidal wave. She remembered their last phone call. He choked back tears and said, "I've given you everything. Are you satisfied? I shouldn't have ever held on to any hope for you. Huo Nifei, you really have no heart." Then he ruthlessly hung up the phone and blocked her. How much it must have hurt him to hear those words back then. Was he coughing up blood again? Was he holding that little dog named Cheng Sheng, crying uncontrollably? The long-suppressed pain finally broke through her throat, turning into a miserable, piercing wail. Huo Wantang could no longer hold herself up. She slipped from her chair, slumping onto the carpet. Like a lost child, she curled herself up and wept aloud. In that crying, there was nothing but despair, self-blame, and irreversible agony. She pounded the floor fiercely, her nails nearly digging into the expensive carpet fibers. I could have saved him. I could have recognized him. Why didn't I recognize him? This thought repeatedly gnawed at her sanity. That day outside the psychological clinic, that emaciated paparazzi wearing a mask and hat was her Nianian. He just looked at her like that. Yet she coldly looked away. If only she had stopped walking back then. If she had just gone up to ask him. If only. Unfortunately, there are no if-onlys in life. Outside the office, Lin Yi and several secretaries listened to the sounds of her breaking down and crying. They looked at each other in dismay, their eyes filled with worry and sympathy. Yet no one dared to go in and disturb her. They all knew that President Huo needed this release, that she needed to face this bloody truth. Huo Wantang didn't know how long she cried, until her voice grew hoarse, and her tears seemed to run dry. All that remained were uncontrollable twitches and sobs. Slumped on the floor, she stared blankly at the ornate chandelier on the ceiling, feeling as though the whole world had lost its color. The next day, Huo Wantang didn't come to the office. After handling the urgent matters, Lin Yi, filled with concern, arrived at Huo Wantang's villa at dusk. He opened the door with a spare key, and a strong stench of alcohol hit him. The living room was a mess, with empty liquor bottles scattered everywhere. Huo Wantang was still wearing yesterday's business suit. Curled up in the corner of the sofa, her hair was a mess, her eyes red and swollen, with wet tear stains still on her face. Yet she tightly clutched the copy of that diary in her hand. President Wo, Lin Yi approached carefully. Huo Wantang slowly raised her head, her gaze unfocused. It took a while before she focused on Lin Yi's face. Lin Yi, her voice was so hoarse it was barely audible. Does he hate me? Did he hate me in the end? Lin Yi's heart ached. He squatted down and gently took the empty bottle from her hand. President Huo, according to the diary, Mr. Huo Nian never hated you. Right up until the end, he just wanted you to be happy. Happy? I lost him. What right do I have to be happy? She reached for the liquor again, but Lin Yi held her hand down. President Wo, you can't go on like this. If Mr. Huo Nian saw you torturing yourself like this, he wouldn't be able to rest in peace up in heaven. In heaven, Huo Wantang muttered, as tears welled up again. He was so afraid of pain. How scared must he have been? Dying all alone. Cheng Sheng wasn't by his side anymore either. In the end, he was holding that Mom gave him. She couldn't go on. She just wept silently. It took Lin Yi a lot of effort to help Huo Wantong into bed. He fed her some water and watched her drift into a groggy sleep, though her brows remained tightly furrowed. Lin Yi sighed. He knew Huo Wantong needed time, but looking like this, what would happen to the company? And what about her own health? In the days that followed, Hu Wantang seemed like a completely different person. She stopped going to the company and refused to handle any business, locking herself in the villa all day, with only liquor bottles for company. She tried to numb herself with alcohol, but in her drunken haze, Huan Yan's figure only became clearer. When he was little, following behind her, calling her sister in a soft voice, his awkwardness during his rebellious teenage years, and finally that skinny silhouette in the dark, holding the puppy's body, crying helplessly. The nominal brother she had adopted, Huo Yu, made a video call from abroad. Looking at the face on the screen that somewhat resembled Nianyan's, yet carefully sculpted by her material wealth, Huo Wantong suddenly felt a strong wave of disgust, an overwhelming guilt. What was she doing? Finding a substitute? That was unfair to Hu Yu, and even more of a desecration to Nianyan. At the concerned face on the other end of the screen, she screamed out of control, scaring Huo Yu into a loss for words. Shortly after, she arranged for someone to send Huo Yu abroad, to an excellent boarding school, and gave him a large trust fund, enough to keep him worry-free for life. She wrote only one sentence in her email to Huo Yu: "I'm sorry, I am not a good sister. Go live your own life." She cut off all contact with this substitute, as if doing so could somehow lessen the debt she owed her real brother. The company's business plummeted, and the shareholders were full of complaints. The media also started to report on rumors that President Huo had suffered a mental breakdown for personal reasons. Lin Yi was overwhelmed and frantic, yet he couldn't awaken Huo Wantong, who was drowning in pain and self-blame. A turning point came late one night. Huo Wantong had once again passed out drunk on the living room carpet. Half asleep, she seemed to see Huo Nian standing right in front of her. Wearing a clean white shirt, his smile was as bright and warm as it was in his youth. By his feet was that cream-colored, happily tail-wagging little dog, Chang Sheng. "Sister." The phantom Huo Nian spoke, his voice soft. "Stop torturing yourself, okay?" Nianyan. Huo Wantang reached out, but grasped nothing but air. Tears instantly blurred her vision. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Sister was wrong. I never blamed you." The phantom smile remained warm. "Seeing sister become so successful now, I'm truly happy and so proud of you. Sister, please live out my share of life too. Live a good life. Be happy, okay? That's my greatest wish." Nianyan, Huo Wantang sobbed uncontrollably. "Promise me, sister." The phantom's figure began to blur, and his voice grew more distant. "I promise you. Sister promises you." Huo Wantang shouted desperately, suddenly sitting up from the carpet. The living room was empty. Only the moonlight spilled in through the window. There was no sign of Huo Nian anywhere, but that dream was exceptionally clear, and Nianyan's words still seemed to echo in her ears. Immense sorrow washed over her once more. But this time, amidst the sorrow, there seemed to be a faint yet resolute strength. Yes, Nianyan wanted her to be happy right up until the end. Trashing herself like this? How heartbroken would Nianyan be seeing this from heaven? She couldn't let Nianyan down, and she couldn't let Nianyan's sacrifices be in vain. Early the next morning, when Lin Yi arrived at the villa again, full of worry, he was surprised to find Huo Wantang already awake. She had showered and changed into clean clothes. Though her face was still pale and haggard, her eyes were no longer dead and hollow. Instead, she carried an almost cruel clarity and resolve. Huo Wantang's voice was still hoarse, yet very calm. "Lin Yi, contact the best private doctor for me. I need a full physical examination. Also, notify the board of a video conference this afternoon." "Miss Huo, are you?" "I'm fine." Huo Wantong interrupted him, her gaze falling on the bright sunlight outside the window. "Or rather, I must get better." For Nianyan, and to atone. With astonishing perseverance, Huo Wantang began rebuilding herself. She actively cooperated with her doctors, quit drinking, and forced herself to eat and sleep, pushing herself back on track to a normal life. She threw herself back into work, handling company affairs with even greater strictness and efficiency than before, and quickly stabilized the downward trend. But those familiar with her could sense it. The Miss Huo, who might have once had a trace of warmth, was gone. The person she was now was more like a precise and cold working machine. It was as if only through endless work could she fill the void in her heart. However, outside of work, she began a secret and arduous pursuit. She wanted to trace back to the final days of Huo Nian's life and uncover every trace left behind. She needed to figure out, during those 5 months she was absent, how exactly he had lived. First, through Lin Yi, she found Sha Yang, the woman who had posted online. In the private room of a quiet cafe, Huo Wantang met this woman, whose demeanor carried a bit of street-smart toughness. When Sha Yang saw Huo Wantang, her eyes were filled with complex emotions. There was sympathy, reproach, and a trace of relief. "Miss Huo, you finally came." Sha Yang sighed. "I tried to find you, but your assistant stopped me. I thought you truly didn't care about Nianyan anymore." "I do care." Huo Wantang's voice was low, carrying a barely noticeable tremble. "I was just blind, a fool. Please, tell me everything about Nianyan." Sha Yang looked at the seemingly formidable woman before her, whose eyes hid a bottomless sorrow, and her heart softened. She began her story, starting from that dingy motel in the urban village. She spoke of Nianyan's innocence and stubbornness. She recounted him coughing up blood but refusing to go to the hospital, how she had to press him just to find out he was terminally ill, and how she had pulled out all her savings to pay for his treatment. "He was so sensible that it broke my heart," Sha Yang said, her eyes turning red. "He kept saying he couldn't be a burden to me. He said I didn't make money easily, and that I needed to save up to open my auto repair shop. When he left, he only took a few items of clothing. And that battered teddy bear. I searched for him for a long time after that. I went everywhere he could have possibly gone. Hospitals, parks, under bridges. But this city is just too big. I couldn't find him." Sha Yang choked up. If only I had kept a closer eye on him. If I had just forced him to go to the hospital? Huo Wantang listened quietly, her nails digging deeply into her palms. So, while she had been busy resenting him, there was a complete stranger, who had offered him fleeting warmth and shelter, and who had desperately searched for him. Yet she, his own flesh and blood sister, Huo Wantang, took a deep breath, and said solemnly, "Thank you." Sha Yang, Thank you for helping him during his hardest times. If you have any wishes or need any help, just name it. Sha Yang shook her head. I don't need anything. I didn't make that post to get something out of it. I just wanted everyone to know that Nianian was a good kid. He didn't deserve to be misunderstood like that. Miss Huo, if you really want to do something for him, then just live your life well. Don't let his death be in vain. Sha Yang's words perfectly echoed Nianian's plea from her dream, striking heavily against Huo Wantang's heart. After leaving the cafe, Huo Wantang followed the clues provided by Sha Yang and visited that urban village. A few years had passed. The area had been demolished to make way for a new shopping mall. She stood at the bustling intersection, trying to imagine how Nianian had struggled to survive here back then, how he hid from that creepy older man, how he found joy in a few dozen bucks earned from odd jobs. A dull ache radiated through her chest. She went to the supermarket and wet market mentioned in his diary, and even found that pet hospital. The pet hospital manager was still there. Huo Wantang took out a photo of Huo Nian, one she had saved on her phone, showing him smiling carefreely at 17. The manager studied it closely for a long time, then shook his head. We see so many sick pets every day. I can't remember him. Huo Wantang didn't give up. She described Changsheng's appearance, a little beige mutt, with an injured leg. The manager frowned, thinking hard for a moment. He seemed to have a vague impression of it. I have some impression of that, but I can't recall the exact details. Huo Wantang wasn't discouraged. Using her connections, she managed to track down the local police officer who had handled Huo Nian's case back then. The old officer was nearing retirement, but he still remembered the case vividly. He led Huo Wantang to the small woods by the river where Huo Nian's body had been found. The old officer pointed at a large tree by the river and sighed. That poor kid. Sigh. It just broke your heart to see him. He was right there, very quiet, looking as if he had just fallen asleep. We investigated for a long time and found absolutely no evidence of foul play. We read the diary too. It was undeniably a suicide. He didn't have much on him, just that stuffed toy, the diary, and a little loose change. We followed protocol and published notices for his family, but no one ever came to claim him. The old officer glanced at Huo Wantang and swallowed the rest of his words. Huo Wantang stood under that tree. The early summer breeze blew past, rustling the leaves. Sunlight filtered through the gaps in the branches, casting dappled spots of light on the ground. It was very quiet here, accompanied only by the murmuring stream. Nianian chose to end his life here. Was it because he felt closer to mom and dad here? In his final moments, gazing at these quiet woods, what was he thinking? Was he recalling his childhood, the days when mom and dad took us out for picnics? She squatted down, gently stroking the rough bark of the tree, as if she could still feel the lingering warmth of her brother. Tears slipped silently down her face, falling into the soil. Nianian, your sister is here. I'm sorry I came too late, she whispered, her voice breaking in the wind. Finally, Huo Wantang went to the cemetery where her parents were buried. Beside her parents' joint grave, she found a small, inconspicuous mound of earth. According to the diary, this was where Changsheng had been buried. The mound was now overgrown with green grass, dotted with nameless little wildflowers. She carefully cleared away the surrounding weeds, and then, beside Changsheng's tiny grave, she personally buried a small, exquisite urn. Inside were the ashes of his original diary. She had hired experts to use a special technique to cleanly incinerate the diary into ash. Then, she brought the ashes back. She stroked the small mound of earth and whispered, Changsheng, thank you for staying with Nianian in his final days. Now, please continue to stay here with him, with mom and dad, okay? After doing all this, Huo Wantang stood before her parents' grave. Looking at their kind faces on the tombstone, she bowed deeply 3 times. Her voice was calm and firm. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't take good care of my brother. But I promise you, from now on, I will carry Nianian's share with me and live my life well. I will do something to make Nianian's passing meaningful. Returning to the city, Huo Wantang made a major decision. She held a press conference and announced that the majority of her personal assets would be injected into the newly established Nian Changsheng Charity Foundation. The foundation focuses on 2 main areas. First, funding impoverished teenage cancer patients by providing medical expenses and psychological support. Second, rescuing stray animals by building standard shelters and adoption systems. At the press conference, for the first time in public, Huo Wantang openly spoke about her brother, Huo Nian. Without going into too much detail, she simply said, my brother Huo Nian received kindness from strangers during his life, and also experienced the impermanence and hardships of life. Establishing this foundation is to honor his memory, and to help those lives who, like him, are currently enduring illness and hardship. I hope every life can be treated with tenderness, and every act of kindness can be passed on. Her actions shocked the business world, and moved countless ordinary people, the voices that once questioned and mocked her. Respect to Boss Huo, the questioning voices. Sorry for misunderstanding you. Were gradually replaced by understanding and admiration. So she bore so much. The voices were replaced by understanding. So she bore turned into understanding and admiration. People finally understood that behind the cold President Huo lay such profound pain and redemption. The foundation's work quickly got underway. Huo Wantang personally participated in project reviews, visited aided children in hospitals, and visited animals waiting for adoption at shelters. During this process, her face would occasionally reveal some genuine, gentle expressions. Although the sorrow in her eyes never truly faded, she seemed to have found a way to make peace with the pain. She would often go to a children's hospital funded by the foundation, sit outside the wards, and watch the children battling their illnesses. Once, a little boy with the same illness as Huo Nian, who had lost all his hair due to chemotherapy, still smiled at her optimistically. At that moment, Huo Wantang seemed to see Nianian when he was little. She walked over, gently patted the little boy's head, and handed him a brand new motorcycle model. The little boy's pleasantly surprised smile caused a warm ripple across her freezing heart. She also tried to help Sha Yang again, wanting to invest in opening an auto repair shop for him to fulfill his dream. But Sha Yang refused once more. Boss Huo, I appreciate your kindness. Sha Yang smiled freely, but I still want to earn money with my own hands. Besides, I'm volunteering at the foundation now, helping coordinate stray animal rescue. I find it quite fulfilling. This is probably what Nianian would have wanted to see. We're all living well in our own ways. Huo Wantang didn't press the matter further. She respected Xiaoyang's choice and was grateful to fate that her brother, in his final moments, met such a loyal friend. Back then, he always said a steamed bun dipped in soy sauce was a delicacy. Xiaoyang looked out the window, his voice quite calm. Actually, I knew he was just starving and had no other choice. But every time he talked about it, his eyes would sparkle, as if he were truly eating some exquisite feast. Huo Wantang listened quietly beside him, her nails digging so hard into her palms that she could barely hold back her tears. These details were much more concrete than the words in the diary, and much more agonizing. Each pang felt like a knife slicing her heart. She knew everything now. She knew how Nianian, in the winter, chewed on buns with cold water. She knew how he trembled in pain in the corner of the bed, yet stubbornly made no sound. She also knew how the little dog, Cheng Sheng, during his saddest moments, licked away his tears with its wet tongue. She asked Xiaoyang for the address of the urban village where Nianian used to live, even though it had long been demolished and replaced by high-rises. She still often drove there herself. She would park by the road and do nothing but stare at the new buildings, imagining how her brother dragged his sick body, and persevered here back then. She still managed company affairs methodically, but her former desperate drive seemed to have faded significantly. She delegated her power, and no longer micromanaged everything like before. Outsiders said that after experiencing her brother's passing, President Huo had let things go and dedicated herself to charity. Only her assistant, Lin Yi, knew that Huo Wantang's heart had never truly found peace. The photocopy of the diary in her study had its edges worn out. Beside it was a massive pile of documents about liver cancer treatment, hospice care, and psychological intervention. It was as if she were conducting a terribly long research project, and the subject was the brother she owed so much. The goal seemed to be, in her mind, to repeatedly revise the unchangeable past. Time flew by so fast. In a flash, that diary livestream that shocked the nation had passed by 3 years ago. The Nian Changsheng Foundation has helped thousands of families. The Nian Changsheng Foundation had helped thousands of families, and Huo Wantang had received many honors along the way. On a drizzly afternoon, she received a call. It was a call from the sanatorium, from Huo Yu, her adopted brother, an overseas call from abroad. On the phone, Huo Yu's voice sounded hesitant and worried. Sister, while sorting through your old belongings at the house abroad, I found a deeply hidden photo album. It's full of photos of Huo Nian from when he was little, and some pages of diary entries you wrote in your youth that no one has ever seen. I read them and discovered some things that maybe even you have forgotten. It's about the time right around Mom and Dad's passing. Some blurry, seemingly deliberately hidden truths. The hand Huo Wantang used to hold the phone trembled slightly. The raindrops hit the window glass outside, sounding unsettling. She asked Huo Yu to mail those things back. The package arrived a few days later. Besides the photo album, there were a few yellowed pages. They were notes from Huo Wantang's teenage years. The handwriting was a bit messy, indicating extreme emotional agitation. It recorded a fierce argument at home, the night before their parents' car accident. The argument was over a major company decision. Her father insisted on taking a risky gamble, and her mother supported him. But the young Huo Wantang desperately opposed it. You're going to drag us all down like this. His diary was filled with stubborn resentment toward Mom and Dad, and fear of the future. The last line read, "If this family ever falls apart, it's definitely their fault." These words, buried by time, were like a rusted key that violently forced open a tightly locked door in Huo Wantang's memory. She collapsed into her chair, breaking out in a cold sweat. She finally remembered the day her parents had the accident, just because they had argued the night before. She didn't even go see them off. And for so many years after that, the immense grief and guilt made her selectively forget this unpleasant memory. She only remembered how good her parents were to her, and how helpless she felt. It turns out, while Nianian was enduring his illness, my subconscious was also carrying another layer of guilt over our parents' death. I always thought Nianian's departure was a punishment for my uselessness. I never thought that this might also be fate's retribution for the harsh words I said back then. This compounded sense of guilt almost crushed her completely. She locked herself in the study for 2 whole days. When she came out, she said to her assistant, Lin Yi, I want to go pay my respects to Nianian and Cheng Sheng, and to Mom and Dad. In the cemetery, Nianian and Cheng Sheng's joint grave was right next to her parents' graves. This was arranged by her later. The boy in the photo still smiled as brightly as ever. Cheng Sheng was squatting obediently at his feet. Huo Wantang wore a black trench coat, standing in the drizzle, without an umbrella. She stared at the photo on the tombstone for a long time, then slowly knelt down. She didn't cry. She just gently wiped the raindrops off the photo with her fingers. Nianian, your sister thinks she understands something now. I always felt it was because I wasn't good enough. That I lost you. Thinking about it now, maybe from much earlier on, our family's fate was pushed onto a difficult path. Dad insisted on taking risks. Mom supported him. I was too stubborn back then. And then there was your unfortunate illness. All of this tangled together, resulting in what happened. Your sister was wrong. Wrong for saying awful things when I was young. Wrong for only thinking about proving myself over the years, failing to see through your act. Wrong for only tormenting myself after learning the truth. Almost forgetting your final wish. You said you hoped I'd be happy for the rest of my life. I used to think that was completely impossible. Without you, how could I ever be happy? Saying this, she paused. Rainwater ran down her hair, mixing with the tears. She could no longer hold back. But now, I want to try and make it happen. I will continue to help you. Watch the Nian Changsheng Foundation help more kids like you. I will run the company well, and turn it into a place that helps more people. I will also try to truly accept my life now, including Huo Yu. It hasn't been easy for that child either. Nianian, I may never be able to fully forgive myself, but I promise you, I won't bury myself in the past anymore. I will carry my longing for you, and live my life earnestly and well. That's probably the only thing you want to see, right? She bent down, gently pressing her forehead against the cold tombstone, as if she could feel a response coming from the other side of life and death. The rain slowly stopped, A faint ray of sunlight pierced through the clouds, shining onto the cemetery, illuminating the bouquet of white chrysanthemums she had just laid down. The raindrops on the petals sparkled. Huo Wantong stood up, took one last look at her brother's photo, turned, and walked away. Her footsteps weren't as heavy as when she arrived, though still slow. They carried a steadier feel. The wind blew through the pine forest next to the cemetery, rustling softly, like a sigh or a whisper of relief. It seems the story could conclude here, a story about forgiveness and redemption, about how to keep moving forward despite the scars. Huo Wantong's life had finally turned past its most painful and tragic page and begun to write its next chapter. That chapter would surely still hold deep longing, but perhaps it would also gradually let in a bit of her own. Peaceful light. Huo Wantong's pace of life quietly changed. She was still busy, but it was no longer that self-punishing, almost frantic kind of busy. She started seeing a therapist regularly to face her deepest, complex emotions regarding her parents' deaths and the resulting overprotectiveness and subsequent guilt toward Huo Nian. This process was not easy, often accompanied by insomnia and mood swings, but she pushed through it. Her relationship with Huo Yu also entered a new phase. After receiving that old photo album and diary fragments, she took the initiative to make a long overseas call to Huo Yu. She didn't over-explain the past entanglements. She just sincerely thanked him, thanking him for showing her the corner she had forgotten. She told Huo Yu she understood the alienation and insecurity he must have felt, and made it clear that regardless of blood ties, they were a family now. She hoped to build a more genuine connection with him in the future. Take care of yourself, sis. The Nian Changsheng Foundation, under her continued investment and professional management, continued to expand and scale. She was no longer satisfied with just financial aid, and began assembling professional medical social work teams to provide psychological support and hospice care for the beneficiaries. At one of the foundation's annual dinners, a young girl who had been helped held her hand. Tears streamed down the girl's face. Auntie Huo, thank you and brother Huo Nian for giving me a second life. At that moment, what welled up in Huo Wantong's heart wasn't just gratification, but a bizarre sense of peace, as if Nianian's life was continuing in another way. She would still visit the cemetery, but was no longer constantly drowned in sorrow. Sometimes she would bring a bouquet of Nianian's favorite sunflowers. Sometimes she would just sit quietly for a while, updating them on the foundation status or venting about troubles at the company, just like when her brother was still around. Once, she even placed a brand new toy in front of Changsheng's small tombstone. Changsheng, take good care of him. Time flew by. Another 2 years passed. After a business forum ended, in the hotel lobby, Huo Wantong unexpectedly ran into an acquaintance, the reporter surnamed Lin, who had first found the diary and hosted the live stream back then. Reporter Lin was now a highly reputable media figure in the industry, with a touch of gray at his temples. Reporter Lin smiled and stepped forward to greet her, a subtle hint of inquiry in his eyes. President Huo, it's been a long time. Huo Wantong nodded in response, her tone calm. I hope you've been well, Reporter Lin. The two sat down in the hotel cafe. After some pleasantries, Reporter Lin hesitated for a moment before speaking up. President Huo, have you been doing okay these past few years? Huo Wantong gently stirred the coffee in her cup, her gaze sweeping over the bustling street view outside the window. She slowly said, not exactly good, but not bad either. I've learned to make peace with myself and to coexist with the past. I suppose this is what growing up means. It's just that the price I paid was too high. That diary changed many people, including me. It made me understand more deeply the fragility of life and the weight of family bonds. I've always wanted to find a chance to formally say thank you. And I'm sorry for uncovering the truth in that way back then. For uncovering the truth in that way. I'm the one who should be saying thank you. It was you who brought Nianian's final voice to me, even though the process was painful. Without that diary, I might have lived in a lie of my own making forever. That would have been truly unfair to him. After a moment of silence, Reporter Lin seemed to have made up his mind. From his briefcase, he took out a slightly yellowed craft paper envelope and pushed it in front of Huo Wantong. Huo Wantong was a bit confused. This was found when sorting through Huo Nian's belongings, kept together with a diary. At the time, I felt the timing wasn't right, so I kept it with me. Now I think it's time to give it to you. Huo Wantong's heart skipped a beat. She took a deep breath and carefully opened the envelope. Inside was not a letter, but a slightly faded color drawing. The paper was clearly torn from a notebook, with jagged edges. On the drawing was a scene carefully depicted with colored pencils. A clear blue sky, bright sunshine, and lush green grass. A girl with a ponytail, smiling brightly, was clearly Huo Wantong in her youth, holding a little boy, Huo Nian, in one hand, and a cream-colored puppy, Changsheng, in the other. Mom and Dad stood behind them, their faces beaming with happy smiles. In the top left corner of the drawing, written in crooked but extremely earnest handwriting, were the words, My family, author, Huo Nian. Wish, I hope my sister is happy forever. On the back of the drawing was a line of even smaller scribbled handwriting. It was added by Huo Nian later. The ink was darker. Sister, I'm sorry, and I love you. Tears instantly blurred Huo Wantong's vision. She seemed to see that emaciated boy, tortured by illness, in the final moments of his life, enduring the pain, using his trembling hands to sketch out, stroke by stroke, the reunion he longed for most, yet could never achieve. He had no resentment, only apology and love. She tightly gripped that thin piece of drawing paper, as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. As a tear fell onto the drawing, she hurriedly wiped it away gently with her fingertip, terrified of blurring the mark her brother left behind. Choking back tears, Huo Wantong said to Reporter Lin, and to herself, he was always thinking of me. Reporter Lin, with red-rimmed eyes, nodded silently. That night, Huo Wantong carefully framed the drawing and hung it in her study, right next to the copy of that diary. She stood before it and looked at it for a very long time. In the days that followed, Huo Wantong would still be the formidable President Huo in the business world, and the Nian Changsheng Foundation's powerful founder. But deep down in her heart, there was a corner that would forever remain soft for that 18-year-old boy. And his puppy, she no longer tried to forget. Instead, she chose to remember. Carrying this heavy love, she continued to walk through this world, striving to live the way he would have wanted to see. She knew the rainy seasons of life might come again, but in her heart, she had already, for herself and Nianian, opened an eternal, warm umbrella. The ending of the story wasn't perfectly happy, but at least it moved towards a kind of scarred, authentic wholeness. Huo Wantong's life gradually formed a new normal. That drawing titled, My Family, was like a tiny beam of light, illuminating the coldest corner deep within her heart. It didn't erase the sorrow, but miraculously dissolved the sharp edge of her self-blame. She realized that what Nianian left her wasn't just pain and regret, but also such pure love and blessing. This realization truly gave her the strength to keep moving forward. She began to proactively plan her life, rather than just focusing on work. She picked up oil painting again, a hobby from her youth, and enrolled in a weekend class. The studio was filled with the scent of turpentine, and the feel of the brush stroking the canvas brought her a long-lost sense of peace. She painted landscapes and still lifes, but never attempted to paint people, especially her family. That drawing was Nianian's unique masterpiece, and she couldn't bear to copy it. Her relationship with Huoyu also became much more natural. After graduating from college, Huoyu chose to return to China, but didn't join the Huo group. Instead, relying on his own abilities, he joined a tech startup. Huo Wantong respected his choice, only offering advice as an experienced professional. When he encountered career dilemmas, rather than giving orders, they would occasionally have dinner together, chatting about work and life, like a pair of harmonious siblings. Once, Huoyu brought his girlfriend to meet her. The girl was a bit nervous, but Huo Wantong smiled gently, handed her a red envelope, and said, "Get along well, and be understanding of each other." In that moment, she seemed to see that. If Nianian were still alive, as his sister, she might have experienced a similar scene. The influence of the Nian Changsheng Foundation grew day by day. They began cooperating with top domestic medical and research institutions, funding early screening for liver cancer and targeted drug research. Huo Wantong was no longer just a donor. She would personally participate in some project discussions, offering advice from the perspective of a patient's family member. During a project review meeting, a young researcher excitedly presented a new detection technology. This new detection technology was expected to increase the early detection rate of liver cancer by 30%. As Huo Wantong listened, her eyes grew slightly hot. She remembered that Nianian was already in the late stages when diagnosed. She dug her nails into her palms, suppressing her surging emotions. If there had been a chance for earlier detection, she became even more determined to support this kind of research. Time flowed peacefully, until one autumn afternoon, Huo Wantong received a call from the sanatorium. It was about Sha Yang. Miss Sha Yang has fallen ill. It's from overwork. The situation isn't very optimistic. She hopes to see you. Huo Wantong immediately canceled all her plans and drove to that small town. In the ward filled with the smell of disinfectant, Sha Yang was much thinner than she remembered, and her face was pale, but her eyes remained clear and stubborn. Seeing Huo Wantong, Sha Yang smiled weakly. "President Huo, you're here." Huo Wantong sat down by the bed, gently holding her frail hand. "Don't call me President Huo, just call me Wantang." Sha Yang shook her head and took a breath. "I'm used to it. Besides, you are President Huo. I don't have much time left. There's something I've been thinking about, and I feel I should tell you." Huo Wantong's heart tightened. "Tell me." Sha Yang's gaze drifted to the window, as if recalling a memory. "Before Nianian passed away, he actually left a message for you. It wasn't written in his diary. He was in really bad shape that day. He was in so much pain. While in a daze, he grabbed my hand and said, 'Sister Yang Yang, if my sister ever finds out, please tell her for me.'" Sha Yang paused, her breathing slightly rapid. Huo Wantong hurriedly offered her water, but she waved it away, insisting on finishing her words. He said, "Tell her not to be sad for too long. She needs to find someone to be with her, so she won't be left alone like mom and dad left her. And tell her to eat a warm meal every day." Her voice grew weaker, and the last word was almost inaudible. Huo Wantang's tears fell silently. "Don't be sad for too long. Find a companion. Eat warm meals every day." These were her brother's dying wishes. Choking back sobs, Huo Wantang buried her face in Sha Yang's palms. "He was such a silly boy. He never blamed you. He always said that you were the best sister in the world." A few days later, Sha Yang passed away peacefully. Huo Wantong buried her next to Nianian's grave, placing down a bouquet of sunflowers. "Now you can go reunite with him." She began to take her meals seriously, hiring a housekeeper to make soup, and occasionally learning to cook. The warmth of the kitchen made her feel grounded. One evening, Huoyu called to say his project was a success, his voice brimming with vitality. As Huo Wantong listened, the corners of her mouth curled into a smile. She walked into the study and looked at the painting titled, "My Family." This time, she didn't cry. Instead, she made a soft promise. "I will live a good life and carry your love with me as I move forward." She still visited the cemetery, but it felt more like visiting old friends. She would bring a pot of tea and chat about her life. The painting was moved to her bedroom to remind her of the love that still surrounded her. The Nian Changsheng Foundation helped hundreds of thousands. Its early screening program saved countless lives. Every time she heard news like this, the regret in her heart would lighten a little. At an international charity forum, someone noted that Nian Changsheng is full of Eastern philosophy. Remembering the departed teaches us to cherish life. Huo Wantong smiled in peace. "This has indeed become the path I walk." Huoyu's successful project made him a rising star in the tech world. He brought his girlfriend Lin Wei to meet her. The braised pork the girl cooked had traces of their mother's recipe. Huo Wantong felt a surge of warmth in her heart. 10 years passed. Frost touched Huo Wantang's temples, and her eyes grew even more serene. She gradually stepped back from management, focusing solely on strategy and charity, and filled her garden with sunflowers and white chrysanthemums. When a documentary director contacted her, wanting to film the story of Nian Changsheng, she thought it over and agreed, but insisted on total authenticity. The focus was to be on the foundation's work. On camera, she appeared calm and composed, her eyes lighting up when discussing the foundation. "How did you step out of the shadows of the past? You don't step out of it. You learn to carry it with you. The people we love become a part of us." Nian Changsheng is about carrying that longing to create more possibilities for life. The documentary deeply resonated with the public. Her story became an inspiring example of rebuilding after being broken. At Huo Yu's wedding, she looked at the newlyweds on stage, then glanced at the empty seat left for Nianian. Even those who couldn't be here today are surely celebrating with us. Sister, you must be happy too. Huo Wantong became a grandmother, holding her granddaughter, Nianxing. The little one's eyes reminded her of Nianian. She pushed the stroller, strolling through the sunflowers. Look, this is your great uncle and Changsheng. They love you very much. When Nianxing was 3, she clearly called out, Grandma. Her sweet voice warmed her heart. Huo Wantong began spending time reading her fairy tales, but never mentioned that heavy name again. The Huo group became an industry benchmark, and Nian Changsheng flourished. She retired behind the scenes to tend to her garden, watching the flowers bloom and fade. Nianqing pointed at the brightest star. Grandma, the star is so bright. Huo Wantang said softly, maybe it's your great-uncle watching over us. On her 70th birthday, Huo Yu gifted her a handmade photo album. The first page was a drawing titled My Family by Nianqing, captioned, Great-grandparents, great-uncle, Changsheng, and us. The last few pages were left blank, with a note that read, in the days to come, we will continue to fill these together. Huo Wantang gently stroked the photos, her eyes welling up with tears, yet smiling. This gift showed her that Nianian had never been forgotten. He had warmly become part of their family's memory. In her twilight years, she organized her old belongings, labeling them carefully, so Nianqing would always know their family's roots. Ultimately, having devoted her life to charity, President Huo passed away peacefully. Before she left, she said with tears in her eyes, Mom, Dad, Nianian, you've come to take me home. I'm sorry, I didn't take good care of Nianian. I had never seen an elderly person cry so heartbrokenly. But in the end, President Huo left very peacefully, with a childlike,